All right, let's talk some college football. Jimmy out along with Paul Stone every Tuesday and Thursday here on the College Sports Rush YouTube channel. And another nice week in the handicapping aspect. And we got a nice slate of college football games. They always seem to work out there. Who in the hell thought that UCLA Penn State was going to be such a great game, and some of the others as well? Paul, let's get to this interesting one. And Oregon and Indiana. Oregon is 7.5 and 55. This thing opened up. Well, look, headline was 10.5. You saw some 8.5, 9.5. So I'm not sure what you saw, Paul, but it's now settled at 7.5. I'm not sure if it'll go to that pressure point at 7, but 7.5 and 55 currently at Bet Rivers. The tail of the tape is unbelievably identical here. Two top 10 teams, two teams coming off of quality road wins. Oregon at Happy Valley, Indiana at Iowa City against Iowa. Two teams coming off of a bye. Two teams that are averaging at least 46 points a game, 46 and 47 a game. Two teams that are averaging over 500 yards of offense. Two teams that are balanced on offense, at least 260 passing, at least 240 rushing, and they're both over 50% on third down conversions as well. The biggest thing, though, so 90% of coaches' press conferences are absolute crap, okay? Just garbage. Pay attention what they do, not so much what they say. But Dan Lanning came over from Georgia as an offensive line coach at Oregon. And then Oregon, for so many years, was built on speed, finesse, spreading the field. It was a finesse team. Um, and he said, we're going to build a program that's built at the line of scrimmage. That's fine. That's you want to say that. There's a lot of coaches that say things that never follow through. Over the course of time, the Oregon Ducks are way better up front. Paula, we were talking about it earlier this week. My top up front teams in college football are Ohio State, Oregon. I'm going Texas Tech, and there's one Miami. Miami. I think those are the teams that are built the best up front. There's a couple of sketchy offensive lines like Texas and LSU that could improve, but we'll wait to. I got to see some progress before we get to that. But they are, and listen, when I picked them in our summer Big Ten preview at like 3.5 to 1 or whatever it was, as long as Phil Knight is there, they're going to reload on their roster and not rebuild because they lost a lot. But man, don't they look good so far, and especially at the line of scrimmage? How about Indiana? Indiana, the Cinderella story. What a great story it was. And late in his career, Lee Corso it gets to go back to Indiana and do a game day. I mean, who thinks you're going to have game days at Indiana and Vanderbilt road games? But anyway, but they got pushed around up front against Ohio State, and certainly in the playoff against Notre Dame. This year, they are way better. Everybody talks about the quarterback improvement, and that's legitimate. I thought Rourke did a fine job. He was playing hurt, but Mendoza is a step up. I get that, certainly as far as the pro prospects are concerned. But man, at the line of scrimmage, I'm not so sure if they get into the playoffs. They're going to get pushed around. Actually, I don't think so. It's a lot of things to go on in this win. And oh, by the way, the top two odds on favorites for the Heisman Trophy are the two quarterbacks in this game. Paul, 7.5 right now is where the number lies.
Yeah, I actually looked earlier this morning at Bet Rivers, Jimmy, and Oregon was -7, so up to 7.5 now. It could vacillate back between those numbers. We'll see as the week goes on. I think as sports bettors, we sometimes ask ourselves, or perhaps even say out loud, I wish I knew then what I know now. And that certainly applies to Kirk Cignetti when it comes to his against the spread performance as a head coach at both Indiana and James Madison. You look at his one full season plus 5 games there in Bloomington, and thus far, Cignetti 13-5 against the spread. And then in his 5 seasons prior at JMU, he was 40-22 against the spread there in Harrisonburg. So 53-27 against the spread, 66%, a nice little winning percentage there for Kirk Cignetti. And by the way, you can Google it too. So it's the truth. Kirk Cignetti is a money getter. But what he hasn't done in 18 games as Indiana's head coach is he hasn't won a game outright as the betting underdog. Granted, it's been a small sample size, only the two games that you mentioned last year. They haven't been an underdog yet until this game at Oregon this weekend. Last year, as you mentioned, the underdog on two occasions at Ohio State and then at Notre Dame in the first round of the playoffs. Lost to the Buckeyes by 23 points, 38-15. Pretty much dominated in that game, never really in it. And then against Notre Dame, the final score 27-17. But Indiana in that game scores two touchdowns in the final 90 seconds of the game. So that 10-point deficit, final margin of victory, quite deceiving. They obviously failed to win either game, failed to cover either game. So Indiana's been really good under Signetti. I'll use a boxing analogy. They've been good against the cruiserweights, and they've been good against the light heavyweights when they move up a little bit. But against the sports blue bloods, the heavyweights, they hadn't measured up yet. Certainly, Oregon is among that small group that I consider heavyweights. Again, it's a small sample size, just two games, but that's the case to this point. Looking at this Oregon team, you mentioned Dante Moore, their quarterback, man, he really impressed me going on the road in that wideout victory at Penn State a couple of weeks ago. Just a big time player. You talked about Phil Knight and the resources that he pours into Oregon and their NIL program. The result of that, true freshman wide receiver DeCorian Moore. He's a guy from my home state of Texas, from Duncanville, Texas, a high school hotbed here in the Lone Star State. Oregon outbid Texas for the services of DeCorian Moore. I think the Longhorns thought they were going to get him, but DeCorian Moore already emerges as Dante Moore's top target. DeCorian Moore, team leading 19 receptions for 296 yards. He's a future first round draft pick. Oregon talented on both sides of the ball. Looking at Oregon since the start of the 2023 season, they are now 6-0 against the spread versus ranked teams during the regular season. So they're really good in this type of role. Austin Stadium, as we know, can get quite loud. They like to set decibel records there. Going to be rocking Saturday afternoon. I think Oregon wins this one by TKO, the Ducks by double digits over the Hoosiers.
Consider yourself warned if you're attending this game in Eugene at Outson Stadium that Wes Reynolds, one of our longtime contributors here on the podcast and also on my radio show, he will be attending games. So if you have any trivia drinking games going on at your tailgate, recruit Wes Reynolds. He's a ringer. So anyway, log into your Bet Rivers app each week to opt into a 3-pack of NCAA football profit boost, including a live boost, same game parlay boost, and a boost to use however you please. See the app or website for more details. Let's move on and go to another Big Ten matchup. That's right. Kind of Rose Bowl is what these used to play in. Bo Schembechler's last game that he played, that he coached for Michigan, was at the Rose Bowl, not at the Coliseum. This will be at the Coliseum. USC is 2.5 and 57.5. And USC under Lincoln Riley, man, just underwhelming. Not terrible, but certainly, you know, not exactly what they were paying for. It was especially all the luxuries and the support that they gave him, staff, his own salary, use of private planes, left the whole shebang, the whole package, what they gave him. But they were very close last year, and it's just same Lincoln Riley. It was at Oklahoma when they stepped up in class when they went to the playoffs as well. Very good offensively and suspect defensively. So USC was close to pulling off a couple of quality wins last year against two teams that participated in the playoff, that played in a semifinal game down in Miami, Notre Dame and Penn State. Jordan Maeva is number one in the country, number one in yards per attempt, a stat that I really value. The first two things I look at for a quarterback is yards per attempt and TD to interception ratio. He's been really good at both of those, 11 and a half yards per attempt for Maeva. The Michigan defense, well, they're still from the Harbaugh to Sharon Moore. I mean, they still are a physical defense, but sometimes some of these high octane passing offense can create some problems. And I'm not ready to put Nebraska's high octane offense into that stratosphere, but Dylan Raiola had over 300 yards passing against the Michigan Wolverines in that one. You look at Michigan's defense overall, top 10 rush defense, barely top 50 pass defense. I think this is a matchup that, especially at home, and we just saw last week, were these traditional Big Ten teams going into California, Southern California, to play with Penn State and UCLA. Even as a kid, I thought the Big Ten teams kind of had some struggles at times playing in the warm conditions in Southern California. Underwood, on the other hand, he is quite the talent, but as a true freshman, I'm not so sure if he is ready to get involved in a shootout with no little room for error. So when they went down to Nebraska and Lincoln, they started using his legs more with some design runs. That's produced some rushing TDs, and I think he's going to be really good down the road. So a more seasoned offense quarterback, and maybe what should he ball to a to a shootout. I'm going to take the Trojans to get over that hump and beat a quality team in the Michigan Wolverines at home, Paul.
Yeah, USC, Jimmy, they certainly had the advantage of being off a bye. And the Trojans, they've been solid the past season and a half as a home favorite. They've covered 6 of their past 7 games when cast as a home favorite, starting at the beginning of the 2024 season. I'll tell you a matchup that's really going to be interesting here is USC wide receiver Makai Lemon versus Michigan's talented secondary. Lemon's a guy who's almost a surefire first round draft pick in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft. He already has, through 5 games, Lemon 35 catches for 589 yards, 5 touchdowns. He is a yak guy, yards after catch. He is really good after catching the ball. Be interesting to see what he and Maiev accomplished against that Wolverine secondary on Saturday. I'm like you. If I was going to play it, I haven't yet, but it would certainly be USC. And I would just advise our listeners and viewers out there that if you're going to play this game and play USC, you probably want to do it now because it might go up to 3. And even if it goes down to 1.5 or 1, kind of dead numbers between 2.5 and 0. So if you're going to play USC, you probably want to grab it now at -2.5.
All right, players who place a qualifying same game parlay of at least $10 on eligible NFL or NCAA football games will receive one standard entry into the weekly squares game. Winning standard squares will be awarded a prize of a $20 bonus bet. See the app or website for more details. Double pick for us. Side for me, total for you, Paul. Illinois and Ohio State, the Buckeyes at 14.5 and 50. And I know you do your power ratings by conference. I'll do my own power ratings with my eyeballs, and if I gotta have one team, I think Ohio State they are my number one team in the country right now. That defense is just suffocating. And saying I really like what they're doing with him, just kind of easing him along. A specific sequence really caught my attention in the Washington game at Seattle. It was third and goal from about the 18 and 3rd and 17, and they were light in the box. They didn't want him to force one into coverage and turn the ball over. So they run a draw. They get about 16 yards, and so they go for it on 4th and 1. And they run a little roll out to the right side, which makes it's an easy read. It's not where you got to make a progress. And he threw it to the running back for the touchdown. Another one where was wearing a 3rd and long for Smith, their outstanding receiver. This is where the other receivers, it was a shallow crosser. The other receivers were blocking. They were not running routes. This was a one receiver pattern, simple read, but getting in the playmaker's hand and doing it. What's that resulted in? Julian Sayin has the number 3. He's number 3. Did I talk about yards per attempt? He's number 3 in the country. Number 3 in the country. Illinois, by the way, is number 2 guy, and that is Altmaier. So this one, number 2 and number 3, Ohio State and Illinois, traditionally, that's not really what you think a ton here. But anyway, this is an interesting team. I mean, interesting matchup. And everybody, when they talk about these two teams, what final score are they going to bring up the most? The most impactful? It was that 63-10 drubbing by Indiana on NBC on prime time when Illinois had a top 10 ranking at the time. And I think that has resulted in this number being just a little bit high at 14.5 and 50. Brett Bielema, I'm going to say that was more the outlier than this year, than last year, and most of his years at Illinois and Arkansas and Wisconsin. He is going to, they want to run the ball. They want to try and shorten the game. They don't want to get in a shootout. He is going to stay committed to their running game. And then when they have to throw it, Altmaier is certainly capable. At home in this spot, this is a lot of points against a solid team. Like I said, I got one team that's my best right now. It's Ohio State. But this, based on that number, and it's already producing massive money line splits as far as the public betting and also with the spread. I'm going to take all of these points, more than 2 touchdowns, 14 and a half, with the Illini at home in Champaign. Paul, you're looking more at the total here.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion on the side, Jimmy. Ohio State, I don't want to get in front of them in any role. Like you said, they're the best team in the country. I just looked over my power ratings. I actually have Ohio State and Oregon at the same numerical value, so
Okay.
tied for first. I have Miami 1 point behind those two for whatever it's worth. But when you look at this total, the handicap of this total, you first look at Ohio State minus 14 and a half. So as a totals better, what you kind of ask yourself in this situation is, will Illinois score more than 17 points against the Buckeyes on Saturday? And I'm not saying, again, I'm not going to play Ohio State. I won't play either side. But my answer to that question, I don't think Illinois is going to score more than 17 points against Ohio State on Saturday. First of all, we'll take a look kind of at the comp, and not to bring up that bad performance, but their offensive performance in that 63-10 loss at Indiana a few weeks back. And predictably, it is kind of an outlier. It wasn't very good, but you still have to consider it. And in that game, the Fighting Illini, they scored 10 points, only managed 161 offensive total yards on 45 offensive plays. So they only averaged 3.6 yards per play. And you can't, but if you take away the 59-yard touchdown pass from Luke Altmaier to Colin Dixon, the Illini only 102 yards on their other 44 plays. So they had great difficulty moving the ball against Indiana. Indiana's defense had great penetration throughout the game, 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. Illinois only 1 for 10 on third down conversions. And not to say that Illinois' offense is going to be, that puny against Ohio State on Saturday. They're likely going to produce rather better offensive numbers. But also, while Indiana's defense is top, maybe top 15 good, Ohio State's defense, arguably the best, maybe inarguably the best in the nation. So they're going up against a really great defense on Saturday. Is Illinois. In 5 games this year to this point, Ohio State has allowed a grand total of 25 points in those 5 games. None of their 5 opponents, including Texas, has reached double digits. They are predictably among the national stat leaders in virtually every key defensive category, allowed just 3.8 yards per play, which is really good. In Ohio State, part of my handicap here on this total, on this under recommendation, is the fact that since the start of the 2023 season, Ohio State has not been as explosive on the road offensively as they are at home. In 11 games since the start of 2023, Ohio State's only averaging 28 points per game. They've only exceeded 31 points in 3 of their past 11 road games. So they're not the same team offensively on the road as they are at home. Since the start of 2023, as a road favorite, they are 8-2 against the under. I think points are going to be at a premium. Ohio State's got a great defense. If Illinois is going to keep it close, they obviously have to keep the Buckeyes under wraps to some degree. I like the under 50 Ohio State, Illinois in Champaign on Saturday.
Keep in mind one of the angles that we love here is that these young quarterbacks making these road starts early, and that first road start for Sayan was in Seattle. And Paul, I'll add this to you: they were fine getting in and getting out. So once they created their lead, they really didn't take a whole lot of chances on offense. They were content on running some clock, and maybe you'll see that similar approach if they build a lead. They're gonna try to shorten the game and get out of there. Why take unnecessary risk when you have a defense like that? I mean, that is. There were some other candidates that bit the dust over the weekend in Texas, who I just did not see that coming. I don't care how improved Lagway was. I mean, they consistently move the ball up and down the field against the Longhorns. So Ohio State, yeah, with every chapter, their defense continues to hold Damon Williams in that Washington offense out of the end zone at home. It's pretty pretty doggone impressive, man. He is a talent. Let's move on, Paul. Here's one in your neck of the woods, baby. This one you grew up with, the Red River Shootout rivalry, whatever we want to call it these days. But the biggest question here is Oklahoma in the availability of John Mateer. To me, Texas being a favorite, this thing opened up at 3. Texas is now 2.5, 42.5. Tells me that Mateer is not playing in this game. I think with a healthy Mateer, I don't know how you don't make Oklahoma a favorite. So I think the odds makers have a little bit of an idea if he's playing or not. And then Arch Manning. And, well, a lot of the accolades were certainly premature and borderline ridiculous with Arch Manning before after 2 starts. But also the criticism is as well. Yes, he needs to get rid of the ball quicker. He needs to become less of a runner, be more settled in the pocket. But he's also getting pressured a lot and has no running game to speak of. He does not need to be your leading rusher on your football team, period. So with that being said, he's going to be fine down the road, but he is far from a finished product, only through 7 starts. 7 starts. That's all he has to this point. But Paul, you're looking at the dog here in Dallas, and I'm sure you've been there. And well, it's one that I want to kind of on my bucket list to make at one point as well. Oklahoma and Texas, 2.5 catching right now at Bet Rivers.
Yeah, this game, the Red River Showdown, or whatever they officially call it now, is a bucket list game. If you're a college football fan and you love to attend games, I attended my first one as a high school sophomore, and I've gone to over 30 of the Red River games.
Okay.
With the last being, I missed last year, went in 2023. I don't think I'm going to go this year, but it is a spectacle. The State Fair of Texas, of course, in the backdrop. Just a phenomenal scene. Looking at the handicap of this game, Oklahoma's standout quarterback, John Mateer, he broke his right hand, his throwing hand, back on September 20th in Oklahoma's 24-17 victory over Auburn on September 24th, 4 days after that game. He had that right hand operated on by a specialist out in Los Angeles. This Saturday, October 11th, he'll only be 17 days removed from that surgery. These guys receive excellent care. They can be quick healers. They're very tough. And Mateer certainly wants to play. He grew up in Little Elm, Texas, about 35 miles from the Cotton Bowl, where this game will be played on Saturday. So he wants to play. But my gut tells me, I think it's maybe 65-35, 70-30 that he won't play. And that's just based on instinct. I don't necessarily know anything. But if Mateer doesn't start, it's going to be Michael Hawkins Jr. He started 5 games on his career. He started 4 games last year, and then he started this past Saturday against Kent State in the Sooners' 44-0 victory. Hawkins, to this point, may be more of an athlete than a polished quarterback. There is a tremendous drop-off at quarterback, no question about it, from John Mateer to Michael Hawkins. At least 6 points, maybe more, on the team's power rating. And despite that drop off, despite my belief that Mateer probably won't play, I still like the Sooners getting the small points here. And it's primarily just because of that defense. They've got a great defensive front, a great overall defense. They rank in the top 3 nationally in basically every defensive category, including points per game allowed at 8.3, only allow 203.5 yards per game, 3.2 yards per play, and only 2 yards a rush. So they are good, great, really, at every level of defense. And when I look at this game and fundamentally how it's going to, kind of pan out, I look at Oklahoma's defense again versus Texas offense, and I just think that uber talented defensive front of Oklahoma is going to get the best of a beleaguered Texas offensive line that has really struggled this year. You look at last Saturday's victory by Florida over Texas, which you alluded to. Florida, going into that game against Texas, they had gotten virtually no pressure on the opposition's quarterback. In 3 games against Miami, Florida, LSU, and South Florida, in those 3 games, Florida had a grand total of 2 sacks. Against Texas, they sacked Arch Manning 6 times. And if you watch the game, they were in the Texas backfield play after play. I mean, he never had any time, and
Right.
Manning's just not experienced enough. He doesn't know when to move up in the pocket, when to go side to side. He just does not yet have the experience to manage himself and move well when faced with that kind of pressure. And most quarterbacks wouldn't navigate well in that situation because they were just in his grill the whole game long. The pressure rate against Manning on Saturday was 59.5%, which is the highest faced by any SEC quarterback this year. So Texas's offensive line, I mean, they just got dominated by Florida. And this Oklahoma defensive line, man, they are better than Florida's even. You remember that Auburn game a couple of weeks ago that we've talked about. In that game, the Sooners recorded 9 sacks of Jackson Arnold, 7 of those in the first half. They also had 14 tackles for loss in that game. They're going to be set. They might set up a 10 in Texas's backfield in this game. They're going to be all over Arch Manning. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think Oklahoma, even with Michael Hawkins, probably going to be the winner. I like the Sooners plus 2.5 over the Longhorns on Saturday in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl.
Venables does a pretty good job when you got a one-dimensional offense. I mean, he's gonna. I even go back to, I mean, a team that a game that knocked a team out of the playoff last year, and that's when Jalen Milroe came in there. He's one-dimensional, but I mean, he was going to run. He wasn't really a great passer, and they just, I mean, made it miserable for him. So I think it's going to be a long day for the Texas offense again. Not one of my official picks, but if you look at the play, I would lean toward the under as well. Speaking of Alabama, neither of us have a pick on this game, but we do need to break this one down. Bama making up the trip after game day against Vanderbilt. I'm still trying to get over that. That's the first time a Vandy road game. They were a host in Nashville, 25 years ago when they hosted Auburn in a wild one. But it was they were up for the game against Vanderbilt. Now they travel to Missouri. Missouri's undefeated, and the 30-14 win against Vanderbilt for Bama, that was certainly closer than the final score. Talk about a bad beat. Yeah, they were forced to go, have one more play. There was a 2 possession game already. Could they have taken a knee? Yeah, they could have. I mean, I guess a lot of teams could do a lot of. You just don't know whether it's TCU to firing one into the end zone because their kicker was a little bit banged up. Whether it's Friday night, putting it over the number. Whether it's West Virginia, BYU, or Charlotte, and in the team that they played. I mean, it's South Florida. It just all over some crazy beats at the end in college football. You just don't know. But one thing about it is that these are 2 clean offenses. And Alabama against Vanderbilt committed their first turnover of the season. It was a Ty Simpson interception. Talk about that passing, that yards per attempt. He's near the top 10 in the country in his first year starting. He certainly has some outstanding targets. But his feel for a young quarterback, well, take Alabama's offensive line of protection that Ty Simpson's getting and compare it to guys like Garrett Nussmeier and Arch Manning, and with the lack of protection that they're getting. It's important. Missouri was going to rotate 2 quarterbacks, but their quarterback got hurt in the opener. In Penn State transfer Peribula is having a nice year. So Missouri is number 1 in the country in third down conversion percentage at 62%. And the other thing about, and I can't kill him for playing Milroe last year because Georgia, when he's playing like that, ain't a whole lot of guys can do that. But then he can also lose your game single handedly, like he did against Oklahoma last year. I think a guy who is a great play designer and a great play caller, Lord knows anybody stepping into those shoes after Nick Saban left is in a can't win situation. But some of the play designs, the third down little swing pass to Jam Miller out of the backfield to end the game in Athens. Some of the things he's putting Ty Simpson in some good positions to have success. I just really impressed with both of these offensives and their play design and their execution. Clean offenses, good game at Missouri. I don't have a side, man. I really don't know what the outcome of this one is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on it, but man, has Ty Simpson been impressive outside of that season opener, and it was his first start, and he goes to first road start as well. Goes to Tallahassee, a very tough opening assignment debut, if you will, and he, predictably struggled against the Seminoles. Florida State wins that game 31-17. But since then, man, Ty Simpson has just been he has been money again. I think we've talked about it on the podcast here, but he's been as good as any quarterback really in the nation. If you subtract that Florida State loss, heard somebody saying, I can't remember which national broadcaster it was, but said if his name was Ty Manning, we would cancel the Heisman Trophy presentation and they
Yeah.
would already give it to Ty Simpson. And maybe that's true, maybe not. But Missouri's had the advantage while Alabama was playing an emotional game against Vanderbilt, where they uniquely had revenge in mind for the Commodores with game day on hand. Missouri was off a bye. They didn't play last week. And the week before that, they played UMass. So Missouri's been in a good mode where they can spend a lot of preparation time on the Crimson Tide. This game opened Alabama -4. I know at least one book on Sunday. Missouri's taking some money. The line now just 3, which sounds a little bit low, but Missouri's been great as a home underdog under Eli Drinkwitz, 8-3 against the spread as a home underdog under Drinkwitz there in Columbia. So game that I'm probably not going to have any action on. I don't think the spot is very good for Alabama for obvious reasons, and Missouri should be well rested and well prepared. But it'll be another great day of October football, another great SEC game to keep our eyes on.
If you like to fade the public, Alabama, I mean, getting massive. They bet Alabama every week. I mean, we look at the top 5 public plays on a radio show each and every week, and they are in it every week. Every week. You know, that Florida State game you talked about, the number one public bet against the spread all season long. So they're going to continue. So it's kind of like a fade Alabama or pass based on the inflation of their numbers. So you keep that in mind that when the odds makers are setting Alabama numbers, they're anticipating Alabama action. So maybe a field goal. Maybe it should be closer to a pick 'em in that game. But Simpson playing at such a high level, DeBoer kind of get to a comfort zone. But every time they get a win in Alabama with DeBoer, it seems like they have a banana peel the following game. We'll see. A good one in Columbia, Missouri. Final game is the oldest rivalry in the South. That's even older. I mean, that's older than Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, the whole thing. And now Georgia is 3-46 here. Georgia covered by a half a point in between the hedges against Kentucky. Once again, you don't know what a coach is going to do. Some coaches might go for 2 and cover that hook at the end. Stoops did not when they cut it to 21 at the end. The bottom line here is if an offensive minded coach who's I've seen have successful offenses in the SEC, he handpicked Jackson Arnold for his transfer quarterback. And so far, and so you want the good? The good is Jackson Arnold has thrown 0 interceptions this year. The bad is, well, the last game in College Station, 0 is the operative term because that's how many third downs it converted out of 13. You want to add 0 for 2 on fourth downs as well. Problem here is for Georgia and I think this is a case for a lot of the SEC teams. You know, just when I talked about my 4 line of scrimmage teams, Oregon, Ohio State, Miami, and Texas Tech, none from the SEC. And man, when that great run of national champions, they were built at the line first. They had a lot of speed and great skill guys, but at the line, especially the defensive line. And so I just think there's a lot of really good teams. I don't think there's any great teams, and that's Georgia. And we talked about it before. That's almost impossible to maintain that level of personnel for about 5 year stretch. Kirby, nobody, nobody had players like him. Draft choices, first round draft choices, guys that have gone on to the NFL and impact players as well. I've seen way tougher teams, way better teams than this Georgia team this year go into Jordan-Hare Stadium and struggle. So I know I'm taking a struggling team. At this point, we should kind of have a feel of what these teams are and what they aren't. And Auburn has struggled on offense. But again, especially just go back to 2 years ago. That Auburn team was great, man, and it was life or death. Needed that long pass to Bowers. He's pretty good, huh, in the NFL to escape with a victory at Jordan-Hare. I like the Auburn Tigers here, plus any type of points. Field goals available right now, +3 at Bet Rivers Ball.
I tell you, I'm not a big away favorite guy, especially in a conference like the SEC that's got such great balance and such a depth of teams. But I'll start with the bad first of all, and you kind of gave the bad and the good relating to Auburn. Jackson Arnold, man, he has been sacked a whopping 22 times through the Tigers' first 5 games. So they're allowing an average of 4.4 sacks a game. They don't rank last in the FBS, but 135th out of 136 teams. So not giving him any protection. But thankfully, as you mentioned, from Auburn's perspective, man, you hit it on the nail. Georgia just not the same on the defensive front as they were during those glory days, those runs of national championships that you mentioned. They only have in 4 games against FBS opponents this year, a total of 4 sacks this year, which is just incredible that Georgia only has 4 sacks in 4 games. They rank tied for 115th in sacks per game. It's early, but man, that's just an astounding stat. So, from Auburn's perspective, maybe they're going to be able to protect Arnold a little bit better than they did against the likes of Oklahoma and some of the others. If Auburn protects Arnold, I think they've got a chance to win here. And like you said, history does give Auburn a chance in this game. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep it tight. I don't think I'll be involved, but I would take the home underdog or nothing. So will be interesting to see if Auburn can get that big victory because they need one to get things headed in the right direction here. And certainly, man, it's just another. We look forward to these Saturdays. We love these matchups, and Southeastern Conference, such a great conference, and you just have so many competitive, intriguing games from a viewership standpoint and from a betting standpoint, week in and week out. In this Georgia Auburn game, just another one of those that really piques my interest.
Another one too, and one thing about that Auburn fan base, they don't give up on their team. No matter how bad they're struggling, that place will be packed as it is always. And it's they've been in much tougher situations in a season than this one. I get that, but that defense is really good, really good. I mean, but the thing is, you just connect the dots, and you have that many sacks, and he's thrown 0 intercept. He's holding the ball too long too. So
Mhm.
protection is an issue, but he's holding the ball way too long. Couple of tidbits also. You talk about your Red River rivalry, Paul. 126 years ago they started this rivalry. They've played 121 of those years. So good job by the SEC by maintaining as this one of the permanents moving forward. That's a gimme in that one. And also you talked about Ohio State and you're under. Ohio State is top 5 on fewest snaps per game. So when we're looking at pace of play is a key ingredient when you're looking at overs and unders as well in college football. Every week, every Tuesday and Thursday, picks, analysis, angles to help shape your handicapping here on the College Sports Rush YouTube channel. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott. We're brought to you by Bet Rivers. We'll see you on Thursday.